Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today. And though you've come through many obstacles.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Hilda episode 6. Yes, we are back with Hilda. I was not lying when I said that on April 1st. This is a series that I originally dropped back in December of 2018. And my reasoning for dropping it 3.5 years ago was kind of a couple things. I put it on hold in the first place because I felt I wasn't getting invested in it. I believe at the time I was doing no schedule, so I was just reacting to the shows when I got to them. And it's like a couple weeks between the last video and then episode 5, which was, at that time, my final reaction. And I wasn't finding myself invested in it like I was with other shows. But then after episode 5, after I reacted to that, I ended up dropping it because I also felt that the episode kind of ruined a setup for the series. Basically, episode 5 followed up on a setup with this troll that was seen outside of Trollberg, and considering how the trolls had been built up and with the tunnels that the Vitra, I think they were called, had made and everything, it felt like it was setting up for this big end game, almost Attack on Titan-like finale for the season. But instead, the very next episode capitalizes on that setup, and in a very underwhelming way. Plus, there's also the question of things that just didn't make sense, like the fact that that troll got into and through Trollberg while making a lot of noise without being seen or heard by anyone except Hilda. That's literally impossible. Someone else would have at least heard it, at the very least. And again, the trolls are kind of set up to be the big, like, creature of this series. Like, even in the first couple episodes before Joanna and Hilda moved to Trollberg, like, trolls were still set up to be the big bad, to be the, like, major creature that they were going to have to face down. And I just felt like this was a very unsatisfying way to pay off the setup. I dropped the series at that time because of those reasons. Because I felt like episode 5 was just extremely unsatisfying and didn't handle its payoff well. And because at the time I wasn't invested in it like I was with other shows. It just wasn't doing enough for me. And honestly, I kind of stand by those points. I kind of stand by those reasons. I still believe that about episode 5. My opinion on that hasn't changed. But I acknowledge, and I acknowledged around that time, probably a little bit after I posted that video, that the way I was currently doing things with dropping shows wasn't that good of an idea. That I was dropping shows a little too easily and for the wrong reasons. which I still, even after that point, had a hard time like fixing. But as I've stated multiple times, I've been trying this year to get back to shows that in the past I dropped for the wrong reasons or too prematurely or so on and so forth, and to at least give them a second chance, basically. And that's what we're doing with Hilda here. Hilda is one of those shows that I've always planned on coming back to. Even back then, like there was a comment I responded to on that video saying that I was planning on bringing this back. That was like 3.5 years ago, and I was planning on bringing it back even then, because I understood that I was wrong to just super prematurely drop it like that. And mind you, I had some issues with this series, and again, I still find them valid. I still think that the first couple episodes when they were living on their own in the wilderness, I think that was a better setup. I think Trollberg kind of watered down the just idea of the series a lot. I felt like a lot of what they introduced was unnecessary and just hurt the overall feeling of what the first couple episodes set up. But I acknowledge as well that I only saw 5 episodes, and only 3 of those were in Trollberg. So, mind you, while I stand by my complaints, I do feel I need to give this a second chance. I do feel I need to try it one more time. And the thing is, I could end up dropping it again. I could end up just not enjoying this series. It is possible. I know the series did really well. It has 2 seasons. It has a movie. People like it. But that doesn't mean everyone has to or is going to. I might end up dropping this again. I might not just end up enjoying it. But I feel like I still have to give it a fair chance, because I could end up loving it. I mean, look at the proof with the Owl House. I dropped that for what at the time I do feel was valid complaints. And at that time in the series, at that point in the series where I did drop it, again, I do feel those complaints were valid. I do feel they were legit. But after I continued, I realized those complaints were addressed, and in an actually satisfying way that eventually, like, gave rise to even better stuff in the future. Not to mention the series itself just really kicked off after that point and became so much better than it ever had been before. Not that it was bad before by any means. So Owl House is a great example of what giving a second chance to can do. And mind you, with that one, I gave it a second chance because it was a donation reward. This one I'm choosing to do on my own, because I believe that this series does have the potential to be really good. Not necessarily on Owl House levels. I don't see that. It just doesn't feel like that kind of series in general that would be to that level. But I could see it being a very enjoyable show nonetheless. But I have to give it a chance in order to find that out for myself. So I don't know where this is going to take me. I don't know how I'm going to end up feeling about this in the end. But I'm hoping to enjoy it. I'm hoping that giving it this second chance will help, and that with things a little more organized nowadays than they were when I was last reacting to it, maybe even having the schedule will help with that. I don't know. It could. But just general thoughts right before we begin, go any further. The idea of Hilda kind of combining this almost cutesy slice of life show with supernatural elements and creatures and stuff is a really cool concept. Just kind of, it's introducing this stuff, but not in the way it usually is. Because usually supernatural creatures and stuff are in a more actiony or like high fantasy type show. You don't usually see them too often in a slice of life. I wouldn't even consider Owl House a slice of life, with all of its fantasy elements going on. Even with the episodes that are more like that, it still feels more exciting, more just enticing and whatnot than a slice of life typically does. I guess there are some episodes that you, again, can count that way, but just in general, overall, as the show. This one is definitely a lot more chill in that regard. And that's fine. It definitely gives different vibes. But it's very unique in that regard. Hilda has two friends in this series. I remember David's name. I don't remember the girl's name. But I had no issue with them. Like, I was cool with their characters. I like Hilda's mom. There's also the elf guy who I think hitched a ride with them to Trollberg. He was one of those little elf people who was living in the tiny houses back in the wilderness where Hilda was originally. And then there's just various other characters and whatnot that you meet throughout the episodes. So yeah. And I know there's other characters too that I had not met yet. I know there's this librarian character who is seemingly really popular. I know there's this other girl who shows up at some point. I know nothing about her. I just know she exists. She has like blonde hair and pigtails or something like that. I just know that these are characters. I don't know pretty much anything about them. I just know they exist. So I'm curious to see where this all continues to go. What I'm looking for going back into this series, though, is I want to at least be enjoying my time reacting to this. I know that sounds like a really wide concept, but what I mean is, like, when I go into recording reactions for this series, I want to not necessarily get super hyped to do so, but to have at least a small amount of excitement. I want to enjoy getting to reacting to each of these episodes. I want to find the motivation. That's a good way to put it. I want to find the motivation to record them. Because if I feel like getting to this show is a slog, like I'm just not enjoying recording this series compared to other stuff, that's not what I want to feel with any show. I'm not expecting the series to do massive things at this point. I'm not expecting this series to blow me away. I just want to enjoy it. That's my goal here. Because it's very clear, I think, after episode 5 and the subpar payoff they did to the setup with the troll, I feel that it's pretty obvious they're not going for some kind of grand thing here. They're just trying to be chill and giving us these little adventures. And that's what we're going to go for. So, like I said, I do genuinely hope to enjoy this, though. I go into every series, even ones that I return to, hoping to genuinely enjoy it. That is always my goal. And hopefully it works out. I can't guarantee anything. I can't promise anything. I'm not going to tell you guys that I'm guaranteed to make it to the end of the season. I don't even know how many episodes are in the season. Probably around 13. I I can't promise you guys anything, but I'm going to give it a fair shot. And again, I'm going to base my feelings heavily on whether or not I'm enjoying reacting to it. But obviously also on the content of the episodes themselves. It's just it does sometimes feel difficult coming back to a series that I already dropped, especially if I do genuinely think I dropped it for not necessarily dropped it for valid reasons, but when I think that the complaints that I had at that time were still valid. You know what I mean? It just feels like I'm going to have a hard time getting back into this because it's been so long and because I did drop it before. But again, I've picked shows back up that I ended up really enjoying. Excuse me. And I'm very glad I have, whether through donation rewards or on my own or whatever. And the funny thing is, I said in the video last time as well that I was planning on watching this on my own time because I still had interest in it. And it's like every time I've said that, I almost never do. And I think the reason for that is because I watch so many other things that I just tend to forget about them. Because it's like all day I'm usually like I watch stuff like these Let's Plays on YouTube and just other things like that. And then there are a couple things that I do sometimes watch on my own, different shows on Netflix and stuff, such as currently I've been watching Through the Circle as of when I'm recording this. The new season of The Circle on Netflix, which has been fantastic. If you haven't seen it, it's a reality game show, and it's really good. There's a few seasons on Netflix. There's also a Brazilian version and a French version on Netflix. There's a UK version as well, but that one's not on Netflix for some reason. But the French, the Brazilian, and the United States ones are all on Netflix, and I like them all. I'm specifically referring to the US one here that has the new season. Because unfortunately, the Brazilian and French ones still only have one season to them. I really hope they get more. I really do. But anyways. Yeah. I've been proven wrong with dropping shows in the past and been shown that shows can get better and really impress me. So hopefully this ends up being like that. Hopefully it catches me completely off guard, honestly. In that. But excuse me. Only time will tell. Only time will tell. And this is also being brought in on the week where I'm starting to bring in some extra shows on the schedule. Just because I don't want to wait to get to them. We're having 2 shows on Tuesday, 2 shows on Thursday. And so it's like, it's quite a bit, but with my recording having been what it has been lately, being able to record so much ahead of time and just really being productive in that regard, I think I'm going to be good with that. I don't think watching this, and I believe Miss Marvel's the other one in this slot. Again, I'm recording this well in advance, so keep in mind that Miss Marvel hasn't even aired yet. Neither has Obi-Wan or The Boys. Yeah, Miss Marvel is in this slot. The Boys and Obi-Wan are in the other one. Because of the specific date this comes out and all. But yeah. So I'm very much interested in giving this another shot. And we'll see how it goes. Obviously, I'll give it more than one episode. So it's not like I'll watch this episode, not like it, and then drop it again. No. I'm not going to do that. I'll give it at least a few episodes here. At least 3. Um, and we'll kind of go from there. So, excuse me. I really do apologize for all the yawning. It's very early. Again, my recording schedule changed. You guys know this by this point because it's been weeks since I first announced that. My recording schedule changed and I have to be up a lot earlier, and I'm still not entirely used to that at this point. But yeah, of course I yawn anyways. I'm always tired. That's my secret, Captain. I'm hoping this surprises me. That's my big takeaway from all of this. And sorry for these pre-thoughts being so long. Just kind of a lot I wanted to say. Just getting back into this series after, again, 3.5 years. So, let's get this started. When the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. It's really funny how I mentioned in the pre-thoughts that I knew about two characters who I hadn't seen yet, and both of them appear in this episode. One of them's even kind of a main focus of the episode, and the other one just has a small appearance during it. That is really fucking funny, though. And it's just like, again, I've seen like maybe a couple screenshots or whatnot, a couple little pieces of fan art showing them. I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know the blonde girl was a ghost, even. I didn't even know that much. So it's just like, I didn't really go into this knowing what to expect. And suddenly I just get both of these characters right off the bat in this episode. That's just like, geez, okay. Just give me everything I ask for. And speaking of giving me everything I'm asking for, this is another thing that has also been common with series I've picked back up, I feel. Why does this seem like every time I pick back up a series that I've dropped, the episode I come back to is really fucking good? It seems like that happens very often. Like, do we need to compile a list of every series that's happened with? Because it just seems like it's very common that that happens. This episode was really fucking good. Like, really good. As in, like, obviously it's been 3.5 years since I watched the rest of this, or the first 5 episodes of this series. But I would honestly say that it's not even a question this was my favorite episode so far. I didn't rewatch the episodes to get back in track with this. I just basically looked at their synopsises. And it's like, prior to this, my favorite episodes were the first 2. But this one very much is my shit. Like, I've talked about before how I'm really into shows that aren't normally horror taking the horror route. This show isn't horror. Like, it has some fantastical elements, but it's definitely not a horror series. This episode, on the other hand, did delve into that. And while a lot of it was just kind of typical stuff, I feel like for a kids cartoon and everything, there was some stuff in this that was legitimately freaky. When the Mara was coming into David's house and everything, you just saw her like shadowed and crawling on the walls, and like kind of like the way she was moving and everything, it's like, Jesus. And on top of that, the story of David's dream she was telling to the other Maras about David's head popping off and rolling into the mouth of a troll and everything. It's like, Jesus. And I love that. Again, that's my kind of shit. I've talked about this before, but like, I love it when shows do this. And specific examples I've always given have been like Samurai Jack with the episode Jack in the Haunted House, which really went hard. Like, seriously. I'll say, I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you have not seen Samurai Jack, and specifically that episode, just watch that episode. That episode goes really fucking hard into the horror aspects of things. But Powerpuff Girls also does the same thing. Powerpuff Girls has this episode called Abracadaver that is legitimately really freaky. And especially if you're watching it as a kid, like, it gave me literal nightmares when I watched it when I was a kid. And yet I watched it many times over, and it still kept giving me nightmares. I loved it. Because that's always kind of been my shit. And there's another episode of the Powerpuff Girls as well where they run so fast they time travel into the future, where because they time traveled, they weren't there to save Townsville and everything, and the world has literally gone to hell and is being controlled by him. And that episode is really genuinely scary too. Powerpuff Girls did this on a couple of occasions and really succeeded both times. I love it when shows do that. When they suddenly take a horror themed route with an episode and it works really extremely well. And this is a great example of that once again. This episode was really fucking good. Also, I said it in the episode, I'm going to definitely say it here. I absolutely adore the librarian's voice. Her accent. I don't know what you would call that accent. I don't know like exactly where that accent would be from. I think it's like from the Scandinavian area, so I guess a Scandinavian accent maybe. But I adore that accent. It's used in oh god, what's it called? Hat in Time. I don't know why I blanked on that. If you've ever played the game A Hat in Time, there's these characters in there who have that accent, and it is just the best. Like, I love certain accents. There are certain accents that I just really love, and that's at near the top of the list for sure. That would be an interesting video to make. A video on my favorite accents. That's weird, but yeah. This episode also had good character stuff. Because everyone can relate to having nightmares, because everyone has nightmares. So seeing David so worried about that and trying to get rid of them, like, yeah, you can understand that. But you can also understand Hilda, who is trying to be brave and trying to, because she's an adventurer, deny the fact that she gets scared at anything. And we soon find out that she seems to be scared of bikes. And I was thinking, watching this specifically, that it might be that she's scared of her friends finding out she can't ride a bike, but it didn't seem to go that deep. It just seemed like it actually was just the bikes because, well, she didn't know how to ride. And I think just the idea of like being on a bike and not having that sense of control is what scares her about it. Which is completely fair. I mean, I can't ride a bike. I was never able to learn to ride a bike without training wheels. Like, if I had like a bike with more than 2 wheels, I could ride it. But yeah, just a regular 2-wheeled bicycle, I never learned how. And the fact that I also have shit balance doesn't help. But yeah, you can very much understand her point of view. The Mara as a character is really interesting. She appears as this teenage girl, like even has zits on her face. It's like I very much noticed that. It's like, okay, that's a detail that I don't feel was necessary, but is a very interesting choice. Um, because it's like the only time you really see characters like with zits on their face like that, they're either trying to, make a joke about teenagers having zits, or they are trying to show a character as being unattractive. But they didn't really do either with her. Like, the zits are never mentioned, they're just there. They're never mentioned, they're never brought attention to. The only thing that's ever mentioned is that she's a teenager. So it's like you can kind of glean the idea from that, but it's just wild that that's just a design choice here. It's a really interesting design choice. Um, all the characters in this were pretty great. I love how when even Joanna finds David in Hilda's bed and everything because she heard the snoring and Hilda doesn't normally snore, I guess. She kind of freaked out like when she realized it was David, and then obviously very concerned, genuinely concerned and scared, did go to David's house and tried to figure out what was going on and everything. Um, it really showed her in a good light, I feel. And David himself, speaking of being shown in a good light, David was fantastic in this episode. Like, he was so like likable, and just that bravery he showed at the end, willing to take on the nightmares for himself just so he didn't have to put Hilda through that, was actually pretty fantastic. Frida was Frida was honestly just kind of there. She definitely took more of a back seat for this episode, to allow Hilda and David to really shine. Um, I just really liked this. I really liked this episode. Like, again, I almost feel like we need to compile a list of every show that this has ever happened with, where I've come back to it after dropping it or taking a break from it or whatever else, and suddenly the next episode back is just suddenly so obnoxiously good that it's just shocking, honestly. um it's wild, just the fact that does keep happening, the fact that that has happened as many times as it has. I think it happened with Owl House, actually. I think that was the case with Owl House, and I very much think that might have been the case with Amphibia. I think the first episode I came back to Amphibia with also was pretty good. Not like the best episode of the season or anything, but was pretty enjoyable. Um, I'm I don't I think I remember what episode it was, but I'm not 100% on that. I don't know. Um anyway, anyway. Yeah, this was a good sign. If we can get more episodes like this, not even specifically horror themed, but to this level of quality, I will be very happy. This is the kind of shit I want to see. Um, it handled things really well. It set things up throughout the episode and followed through with them really satisfyingly. And I just feel it really knew what it was doing. I don't know if the episodes of this series have different writers to them, or if it's the same writers for each episode. But whatever the case, the writers really knocked it out of the park with this one, um, in a really satisfying way. So kudos to them. Um, Either way, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Hilda? And are you excited to be back? I know people were pretty interested when I posted that April Fool's video for the movie. If this is a sign of things to come, we will eventually get to the movie. if this is how it's going to be, that will be coming at some point. Which I think I heard the movie actually did pretty well, so there is something, I guess, to look forward to in that regard. But yeah, so like I said, tell me your thoughts down below, and thank you so much for tuning in. Obviously, no spoilers. I luckily wasn't really spoiled on anything during these 3.5 years. Like, I knew about 2 characters who were coming in, but I didn't know anything about them, other than one was a librarian and the other girl was blonde and had pigtails. That's all I knew about them. So I'm lucky to have not been spoiled. So I really don't want to be. But you can tell me your thoughts on this episode for sure, and even previous episodes if you want to just mention those. Either way, thank you so much once again, and I'm very happy, if just for this episode alone, that I decided to check this back out. So for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.